All right, thank you for letting us come out today to run through some slides on some plumbing aspects that you can take a look for when you're going through your home inspections. My name is Chris Mallick, and this is Cody Wilcox, who's also assisting with me today. I'm a master plumber and master gas fitter, so you can probably trust my word a little bit. So Mallick Plumbing was started about 31 years ago now by Kenny Mallick. We're based in Montgomery County, right in the Air Park in Gaithersburg. We have two divisions, being between residential and commercial, with about just under 30 trucks on the road. Still family ran. We do take care of general plumbing, but whether it's between kitchen and bathrooms, water heaters, drain and sewer cleaning, water treatment, gas lines, pump repair, replacement and installation, as well as boiler work. Again, there's my smug mug for you, as well as Cody's. So today we're going to discuss the life expectancy of different types of plumbing and piping, how to assess main sewer lines and exposed drains, common defects and leak testing protocols, as well as pressure readings and other issues that might be missed during home inspections, as well as some plumbing concerns that you might want to pass along to some homeowners. So we're going to move on to some drain, waste, and ventilation piping. So you'll see here, right on the left, that we've got cast iron. I don't really care for that. Cast iron, PVC, and then copper drain and waste and vent, and then terracotta, also called Orangeburg. When it comes to water, domestic water piping, we've got copper on the left, CPVC in the center. Newer in the past 10 to 15 years, we've got PEX water piping. And then we've got some outlawed Quest piping right towards the right, and then some galvanized piping all the way to the right. Now for drain, waste, and vent, you will also see cast iron piping, which you'll see to the left here. And then we've got our PVC pipe here in the center, as well as copper, drain, waste, and vent, terracotta. Oh, I went the wrong way. There we go. So when it comes to the cast iron piping, you'll see that it's mostly found in homes that are from 1970s or before. It was built to last forever, but unfortunately we don't see it lasting too much longer than today's time frame, as we do tend to be digging up a lot of yards nowadays. But while it can last a long time, you'll notice in the photos here, the one on the bottom here, that's going to be a cast iron flange. So there was a toilet sitting on that at one point. The toilet had been removed. At one point, there was a wax ring as well, which eventually disintegrated, causing the rust buildup that you'll see on that flange there. And then in the top right here, you'll see cast iron drain piping here, as well as PVC that's been interconnected from a repair that was done. So that is something you'll definitely frequently see, as I'm sure you do. So big thing that causes some of the degrading to cast iron piping is going to be poor installation or possible chemical usage like Drano and any of those highly corrosive chemicals that people think unclog drains. Big thing that we say that you'll look out for is, while you might see PVC piping throughout a home, majority of the time throughout the 80s and 90s, they were still putting cast iron piping within the ground. So when you're looking at the base of some of your mechanical rooms and so forth, you might see that there is a transition.
One of the big things we've been hearing about on cast iron is people are putting their condensing furnaces into the drain without a neutralizer, and that causes lots of problems because it's a continuous slow acidic for 4 months.
That's correct. And we actually talk about that regularly. We're not a HVAC company. We work on boilers mostly, but when it comes to our high efficiency water heaters and combi boilers, that does produce that acidic condensation. Somehow it's not in the code yet for the HVAC technicians, where they have to neutralize that condensation. Whereas for our combi boilers and other high efficiency units, we do have to neutralize it, so then it is safe for the drains. It is actually written into the IPC code that is required. But you definitely don't want to dispose of that within the floor. When you see it in the floor drain, it's definitely, as you stated, something that can cause further issues. I also personally consistently recommend to customers when I see it, even going into a sump pump, that sump pump's made of cast iron typically, so it's going to corrode as well. So PVC piping is essentially what's only used nowadays when it comes to residential homes. Definitely a lot cheaper than cast iron, and you can use PVC to cut in to make repairs on cast iron as well. PVC, when properly installed, will have a longer lifespan of 50 to 80 years. It is lightweight. It's more resistant to chemical damage. So while we still advise customers not to use the Drano and other drain cleaners that are highly corrosive, it will still pass through the drain line. Like I said, it is used in new homes as well as the repiping of homes. When it is exposed to UV light on a regular basis, it can become brittle. So those irrigation lines you see on the outside of houses, when it's regularly exposed to the UV light over time, you go to cut that, it's going to shatter. On the picture here, you'll see right over here at the bottom, as I kind of stated, you'll see in some homes where they have cast iron as the groundworks. This is actually a house that we replumbed the crawl space, and the homeowner wanted to leave the cast iron in the ground. We cambered it. It was still good to go. So we replumbed all the drain waste and vent for the fixtures above. So here you'll see the copper piping. We've got a combination of copper drain piping and water piping here. But it is, like I stated, used for water supply and drains. Can be a long-lasting option, so long as it's not exposed to acidic water or any aggressive chemicals that are put down the drain. It is, as you'll see in the photo here in the center, there's a pinhole leak that's occurred, and you'll see some of the mineral buildup that's developed, which is something that occurs with the hard water in the area, especially if you have a homeowner that's on a well system and they have no water treatment. That acidic water is going to eat that pipe out from the inside. Here is a copper drain line on the left here that you'll see it's split right down the center. That's also just a result of long time usage, possible chemical usage down the drain as well. That's what a pinhole leak would start as on a copper drain line. And then on the far right here, you'll see in the red and the blue, circled in the blue there, we've got the copper water supply pipe in, and then it's very faint, but there is a copper drain line right next to it. It's just what we'll commonly see, especially in the Rockville area. See a question over there? No? Okay. So now on to terracotta. Typically, you're really only going to find it in the ground. So the best way to determine if it is present is going to be with a camera inspection. It's typically going to be found within the areas you'll see here of in DC and any homes that are older than 70 years old that have not been replumbed. But the way that these fittings are made that you'll see in the photo there, they're typically in 2 to 3 foot sections, and they are literally fitted together as a socket, and they're very commonly exposed to root intrusion that we'll commonly find and have to dig up the yard for. These types of piping can also be lined with sewer lining equipment. Is also a remedy for these types of situations. Here we've got CPVC. It is the most durable plastic water piping that's used for domestic hot and cold water supply. It's typically going to be a tannish color or yellow, depending on the years it was manufactured. It is developed with a chemical that makes it chlorine resistant, but I will say over time that does wear off, as it is one of the most brittle water piping that is around. One thing I will say, eventually CPVC is going to be outlawed. There is waves being made within California right now as the glues that's used to put the fittings together. It is causing cancer, they say. So we anticipate within the next 10 to 20 years that it's no longer going to be utilized for water supplies in homes, unless they make any changes to the way that the fittings and the piping is put together. So now we'll move on to PEX piping. Most new homes are going to be plumbed with PEX nowadays, as well as the CPVC pipe. It's definitely one of the most easy piping to install, as it is the most flexible. And it does require less fittings as it is so flexible. That's every time we aim to install it, we try to go with as little fittings as possible for least points of failure. Again, has a lifespan of 40 to 50 years. Big thing with this type of piping, it is not friends with UV light as well. So I typically see, unfortunately, a lot of plumbing trucks that will drive by with it in the back of the pickup. Once it's exposed to that UV light, it can become compromised. They do have some piping that has a UV barrier on the outside, which is also made for the radiant slabs and so forth, to where that has the oxygen barrier that it's protected from those factors.
Question?
Yes, sir.
So we run into PEX with a lot of the new homes, and now we're running into most of them are doing with PEX A, but what do you have to say about PEX A versus BC?
We only use PEX A.
Right, but what is
PEX
your best way to determine which one is there?
It's going to say it on the pipe. And honestly, it's also judged by the fittings that are used. So PEX A is an expansion type pipe. So they actually use a tool that goes within the pipe itself, and it opens up the pipe, and then you put the fitting inside, and then it closes back to its original size. It's got the most flexibility when it comes to freezing conditions. It can expand ever so slightly, but it can still burst. When it comes to PEX B, it's typically a crimp style fitting. It's highly rated for pressure as well, but it being that it doesn't have the expansion factor that PEX A does, it does not have that, what's the word I'm looking for? It can't withstand with cold temperatures. But lost my train of thought. Yeah, we'll just move on there. But in the photos here, you'll see that we replumbed a home here. They are on well water, so there is a bunch of water filtration there. But the customer preferred to have a manifold reinstalled, so that's what's mounted on the back wall there. So they do have an individual shutoff valve, both downstairs as well as under the sink. And there's just another photo of the ease of running the PEX pipe in a crawl space. I'm sure y'all probably see a lot of Quest piping out there as well. If it wasn't taken out in the class action lawsuit, then you'll typically see it set up like in that photo there, where someone came in and cut out part of the manifold and went back with CPVC to let the house piping last as long as possible. So the piping was, as I said, outlawed. So there was a lot of repiping that was done in the past due to the failure that was occurring at the fitting connections for this piping. And as you'll see at the bottom there, we do recommend, every time we see it, we do recommend a full home repipe. They do make shark bite fittings to make repairs on this piping, but we already are not a fan of shark bite fittings, but it is a way to get people through a pinch. But if you do see it, definitely communicate it, as I'm sure you do. Galvanized water piping is still out there. We mostly see it in DC and some parts of Rockville. Pipes consist of a steel and protective zinc coating, which help prevent rust and corrosion, which did last for a long time. But with the hardness and chlorine within the water, it does start rusting out from the inside. So a lot of the times, we don't have it really in a photo here, but when you cut off a section of galvanized piping, sometimes you can't even see how the water was able to pass through, as it's completely clogged up. We find throughout homes as well that water pressure is affected throughout homes. Some homes that might have galvanized piping, as it's flaking off within the piping, it will be found in some aerators, maybe the fill valves in toilets and so forth, causing for those fixtures to malfunction. In the photo there to the right, you'll see that it was a transition that was made from galvanized to cast iron. That was a brass fitting that was threaded onto the end of a galvanized pipe. And that's really the most common failure point with galvanized piping, is going to be those fittings. All right, so how to assess main sewer lines. Surefire way is going to be to camera the sewer line from a clean out or toilet access. With the camera inspection, we'll be able to see if there are any bellies, root intrusions, a drop section of piping, cracks or breaks, as well as confirm what materials in the ground. Some things you can be on the lookout for if you can't run a camera inspection. It's going to be running as much water as you can from all the fixtures in the home, the most volume of water that you can get down the drain. is definitely the best way to see if the drain is draining properly. If you do hear some gurgling when the drain is running, while it can be a sign of no vent being present, it can also be that the vent is compromised, whether there's debris from the rooftop, critters coming in from up top on the roof as well. And then one thing we like to point out, I'm sorry. Yeah, like I said earlier, whenever you're underneath the cabinets, you ever see Drano and so forth, if you happen to see a copper or cast iron drain line, that's something that's probably screaming out there could be a compromised drain in the home. Some things we typically do see as well with sewer lines that have bellies. When a sewer line's got a belly, it is holding water, and typically there's a crack somewhere, so it can be leaking. And we do tend to find that it's a nice overgrowth in that area in the yard, or a dip or a sag in the yard as well. Can also be a sign that there's a compromised drain. So how to assess main sewer lines and exposed drain lines. This would be exposed drain lines here. So big thing I like to point out is the center photo here. You'll see that there was multiple repairs done, as we've got cast iron here on the far left. We've got PVC pipe here. This is actually a Fernco 90, so that's a rubberized fitting. And then we've got ABS piping with PVC. So someone had a lot of fun here. I will say, when you see the PVC to ABS, that is actually essentially not possible unless you have a specific type of glue, as ABS has its own glue and PVC does as well, as they have different melting points for the actual connection. In the photo here on the bottom left, you'll see an accordion style drain. I'm sure you might be familiar with those. Big common defect we see is that they'll crack as they become brittle from the water that passes through. And over here on the far right, you'll see that it was a cast iron drain. I actually had the pleasure of crawling back 75 foot in this crawl space to find. So this is some pinhole leaks that are happening on the cast iron that you see. And it was just all throughout the crawl space in this home. One big thing that I also see as well on drain lines, you won't really see it on water lines, because if it's done on a water line, it's typically going to burst fairly quickly. But on a drain line, if you ever see that orange or yellow glue with the PVC pipe, that is CPVC glue that's used for water piping. While it will essentially work, it is not correct. It will eventually create a leak, whereas the PVC glue has that purple primer and clear glue. Sometimes there is clear primer that's used as well. So if you don't see that purple, it's not to be alarmed, unless you see a leak, obviously. All right, so we've got some photos here of some drain lines as well. Whereas you'll find that the black fittings here, those are called Fernco couplings. It's designed to transition between two different types of materials. Properly installed Fernco will have a shear band, which you'll see in the photo over here. There is Ferncos, and there is a metal shear band that's around the center point. And over here is a Fernco that does not have a shear band. It's kind of tough to see from far away, but the PVC piping has actually shifted to the left, so it's not actually in line with that original cast iron piping, which can lead to leaks, stoppages, root intrusions, and so forth. When you put the shear band on the Fernco connection, it's going to provide a nice rigid seal between the two piping, so it doesn't have the ability to shift, as you see. Yeah. Another thing to keep an eye on is going to be for properly strapped drain piping, especially if it's got a Fernco on it. If it's got the Fernco, you definitely want to make sure it's strapped, but majority of your cast iron and PVC drain piping is going to be strapped every 4 foot. So this was a video we had here for a mow and flow. We do not have capability to play. Oh, it's trying to play it. Okay. But so in the photo here, you'll see that's a main water line. Mow and flow gets installed right on the main water line. It's going to be installed after the water meter, a pressure reducing valve, a backflow device, and then you'll find the mow and flow. So mow and flow, I'm sure I don't know if you're aware of them, but they are a flood monitor. There are many manufacturers out there that do have them. Mow and flow is the one that we've been sticking to for about the past 4 or 5 years, as we've had a great reputation with them and very little issues with them. So it's installed on the main water line, as I said, and what it does is it learns how the customer uses water within the first 48 to 72 hours, and any irregular water usage after that point, it can notify the customer. Moen has integrated multiple different types of devices that can be placed throughout the home as well, whether at sump pumps, under sinks, by water heaters, by the water main that will also detect any leaks. Unfortunate thing is when a Moen Flow is installed, it's only going to detect what's after it. So any leaks on the water meter and so forth won't be detected by the device, but that's when we would recommend having one of the flood pucks put underneath. Does conveniently have an app that it can be ran through, and it is paired through Wi-Fi. So if customers out of their home on vacation and they have a catastrophic failure, as it's called, the Moen Flow device will shut off their water and send them a notification that that catastrophic failure has occurred. It is also a very smart device. So as I said, it learns how you use water. So when you're taking a shower, it's going to learn exactly how long you shower for. So if it sees that water's running past that certain point, it's going to send a customer a notification of you've left your sink faucet on or you have a running toilet in the house. It can detect as small as that. So here we're going to move on to water pressure readings and pressure reducing valves. Cody's going to pass around a pressure gauge and a pressure reducing valve. So high water pressure as well as water quality are the biggest failures to plumbing. So one of our big things that we take a look at on any customer's home is going to be the water pressure in the home. That gauge is able to be hooked up to a hose faucet, the base of a water heater, washing machine valve, and so forth. So we're looking for anything between 65 to 80 PSI. If it is lower, then it's not necessarily a problem, as well systems are designed to run on 30, 40 PSI. So when it comes to the pressure reducing valve though, if it does have a pressure reducing valve in the house and you see that lower pressure, it can be a sign that the pressure reducing valve is failing. We also unfortunately run into new homes that just have extremely low water pressure due to the distribution system that's been put into the ground. Just not big enough to carry the size of neighborhoods that they're putting in nowadays. That's when we talk about booster pumps and so forth. But as I said, you can take that gauge and you can hook it up to any hose faucet, laundry sink, washing machine valve, and then get the pressure reading. Big thing is that it'll cause strain on water piping. The water piping, it is rated for up to 160 PSI, but as we all know, not every fitting can get installed. It gets installed in the most perfect way, so it can be more prone to leaks in the future, which is why we recommend, as well as local code being under 80 PSI. So we've also got some Drano that we're going to pass around, or I'm sorry, BioClean that we're going to pass around. Now that is a organic enzyme that's made to eat away at organic matter, whether it's hair, food waste, and so forth. So the Drano you'll see here, this was actually a customer's house I went to. She had a bunch of other chemicals under the sink as well, Comet and so forth, where this P-trap here was rusting out from the outside. We also see that in pool houses where you'll see where they keep their chlorine is just rusting out the piping from outside. They create a chemical reaction the Drano creates the chemical reaction that generates the heat to dissolve hair, grease, and soap scum, which ends up impacting your piping. And it can also cause softening or warping of your PVC piping. I will say it is not a plumber's friend. Anytime we go to a home, we got to snake a drain that's got Drano in it. I've actually got skin burns from it coming back out on me. So real fix to a clogged drain is going to be snaking the drain out. When you use Drano, what it does, it's going to eat a small hole through that actual clog, but then the rest is just going to build up like a goo on top of the rest of it. It doesn't actually completely remove the clog. The BioClean can be purchased on Amazon if you ever want to recommend it to a customer. It's about $50 on Amazon. We also carry it in-house. We've also got some PVC piping we're going to pass around. Both are rated Schedule 40, but one is going to be a cellular type core. It's actually got a PVC on the outside and PVC on the inside, where it's more solid, but the inside is actually foam. So you'll see there's air pockets. It's kind of tough when you see it there. When you get it out of the supply house, it's easier to see. That's from our shop. We did a quick cut before we came, but it's not designed to be used for high efficiency water heaters like power vent water heaters that you'll see here on the right. They've also got ABS piping there, which is also illegal. Manufacturers do not recommend using anything but Schedule 40 solid core, typically red letter pipe, but it can be found in black letter as well. So that's why we wanted to bring in some examples so you could see the differences between the two. You can actually feel the weight difference. It's pretty crazy. But the big outlier is going to be where it says cellular core, as they both do say Schedule 40.
Going back a slide or to the pressure regulator, if you don't have a pressure regulator meter with you, screaming toilets, ice makers that jam or do weird ice cubes and things like that are all symptoms of high water pressure.
Yeah, the ice cubes, that's news to me, but definitely that squealing toilet, that fill valve's taking a beating from that high water pressure. You'll definitely typically see that on the upper levels of the house. And if you are able to take a pressure reading within the house and you do see that it is in that 65, 70 range, when you're taking that pressure reading, it's most common that people are in the homes at the time using water as well in the neighborhood. Whereas overnight, when the water is not being used, that pressure will increase 10 to 15 PSI as well.
One of the things to be aware of when you're testing water pressure at a hose bib is to look inside the house to see is the hose bib takeoff before or after any pressure regulator that's installed in the house, because sometimes they'll have the hose bibs come off the main water line and then have the pressure regulator that is for the domestic water into the house. So you can get an artificially high water pressure reading from the hose bib.
Correct. That'd be an improper installation of that hose bib, in my opinion, but yes. So here we're going to be looking at some mineral buildup versus flux stains, which can commonly be confused. So here in the actual center photo, we've got an example of pinhole leak that you'll see. And then on the right here, you've got some blue staining. The blue staining here is actually flux that was not wiped off when the piping was put together. So when installing copper piping and performing a solder joint, you're going to put in flux on the fitting first, and then you will heat that pipe up. And when you go to solder the line, that flux actually pulls the solder into the joint. And if you don't wipe down the flux, it will turn blue. So the other pictures there, those are actual pinhole leaks that have occurred. The top photo is actually a ProPress fitting, which is used nowadays, where there was a connection above that was not crimped properly, which ended up leaking down further and causing corrosion onto the top of the inlet of the cold supply for the water heater. When you do see the pinhole leaks, as I'm sure you find out there, it almost looks like stalagmites in the Luray Caverns. It just builds up as it closes itself off over and over until it eventually does completely open up. Flux stains have a nice, typically it's more like a sheen that's over the line. It can have a brown tint to it as well. It can be wiped off, sanded right off, and the copper is brand new after that point, short of the inside of it. But mineral buildup is typically the cause of hard water. So we recommend water softeners at that point. Okay. So we recommend service on water heaters, pumps, boilers, backflows, and water treatment to avoid any costly repairs or unexpected failures. So various types of water treatment on the market. We're going to have water softeners, carbon units, acid neutralizers for well systems, chemical feed neutralization for well systems, and as well as UV lights for bacteria in well systems as well. Big thing for backflows is there are two different types of backflows. You have a testable and a non-testable. Your testable devices are typically going to be for irrigation supplies. You will find them for fire suppression systems as well. Just not too common for a residential setting. And I will say, if you do see a testable device on a fire suppression system, definitely want to make sure that there's a drain nearby if it does have any sort of release that it can perform, because it can flood a house. But over here, you'll see, as I'm sure you do see, they're typically tagged, but here is a 7S backflow preventer that's installed on a fire suppression system, and then a 1024 installed with the pressure reducing valve on the water main. Those do need to be replaced every 5 years. They cannot be rebuilt. If you do not see if they are not tagged, they need to be replaced.
Comment on the testable. WSSC will allow you to swap out the testable for the replaceable, because they understand that nobody was doing the test, and the test was god-awful expensive at the same time.
Yep, that is correct. It's this typical device that was the testable is a double check that he speaks of. So that 7S backflow is also a double check. It's just spring loaded. They do make repair kits for them, but there is no way to test it upon the repair, so we do not repair them.
Excuse me, I just had a quick question. The serial number on the backflow preventers, is that sometimes an indicator of the date I thought I've heard, or?
It can, sometimes some of the manufacturers will input it into the device are you speaking on the testable?
The one on the fire suppression system?
Yeah, sometimes the manufacturers will put it within the serial number, but that's not necessarily going to tell you any lifespan that's left within the device. It's really going to be the test that's there. We've seen devices that are just a few years old that fail a test as well. Yeah. Those testable devices can be rebuilt though, as you can retest them afterwards through the different test ports that are above here, which signifies they are testable. So some considerations for our new appliances and emergency pans. Today's washing machines, they do tend to put out a lot more water from their drains, from the drain pumps that they have. So an IPC plumbing code recommends that you have a 2-inch drain line for those units, while majority of the time you'll find in the older homes it is an 1.5-inch drain. It is just recommended to communicate that to any client to let them know of that 1.5-inch drain, just because we find all the time that customers move into a home, they put in that Speed Queen or whatever washing machine that has all the bells and whistles, and they've got overflowing drains because of an improper size discharge. Sure, as I'm sure you're aware of, anything that's not on the ground level does require a emergency pan when it's on, especially if it's in a condo building. But even those second floor washing machines, they need a drain pan plumbed to ground level for if there is any leaks to the unit. There are some counties that require it regardless of where it is. So even in the basement, that biggest county that we see that in is Howard County. And then in the photos there, you'll see we do have some drain pans there. Don't always have a drain available to plumb the drain pan to, so we'll cap the drain pan and then we'll put a water alarm in the base. They do make Wi-Fi water alarms that don't require the moan flow or anything, but can send a notification to the customers as well. All right, so one thing we wanted to touch on was S-traps. So in the photo here, you'll see the S-trap on the left. So that does not actually have a vent to help the drain ventilate as it is going down, which can cause for traps to be sucked dry when other fixtures are used from nearby, which when the traps suck dry, it removes the water that is meant to seal the sewer gases from emitting from that drain. On the photo here to the right, within the S-trap, you'll see that is what it looks like when it is ventilated. It's typically going to be within the wall. When you do see this type of trap, it doesn't necessarily mean you got to start demoing the wall. You can put in what's called a Studer vent, which is right here. So what that does is it's got a flap in it. So when the water's being ran down the drain, that flap actually lifts up and allows for the drain line to be ventilated through the cabinet that it's installed in. And as the water's done draining, that flap goes down and does not allow for the sewer gases to return. Big thing I would say is if you see an island sink, especially in a house that's been remodeled, If you don't see a Studer vent, it's probably not vented. Now there are ways of venting these types of situations, but I can say that was more so done in the past. We regularly see remodeled homes that have zero ventilation and under these island sinks. So that's when you'll perform some testing to confirm the drainage of the line, and we can install a Studer vent. Big no-no is flushable wipes. Whether it says flushable on it or not, they are not good for the drain. They cause serious damage, leading to blockages and slow drainage. They're not designed to break down like toilet paper is. Definitely don't want it in a septic tank. Grease tends to be a wipe's best friend, which really lead to a nice stoppage. If you're going to be using a wipe, we always say throw them in the trash. So another thing is some proper usage of a garbage disposal. So we always inform customers here, as you'll see on the right, grease, fats and oils, starchy vegetables, any bones, any pasta or rice, and then any non-food items as well. We find utensils all the time down drains, but you don't want any of that going down your garbage disposal. Even eggshells, while they say it helps clean the blades, you do not want to put eggshells down the drain because all it does is it will build up within the trap of the kitchen sink or within another point of the drain line. Definitely don't want to put any orange peels or lemon peels down the drain to make it smell nice. A nice trick that you can do if that's something that's going on is a bunch of ice cubes, fill it up within the garbage disposal, take that Dawn dish soap, fill it up in there as well, run the water, then kick the garbage disposal on, then it's going to put a nice clean to the garbage disposal. Sometimes you can see as it does do that cleaning, you'll see a nice black liquid that comes out and then goes right down the drain. When you are on septic, you don't want to have a garbage disposal typically because of the different bacteria that are generated from food waste and then sewage. This just creates an imbalance within the tank. So incinerators actually developed a specific type of garbage disposal that injects an organic enzyme similar to that BioClean there that helps for the bacteria to mesh well in the septic tank and let everything decompose properly within the septic tank itself.
When we're working with septic people, we tell people never put anything down the drain that you haven't already eaten
Yep.
or that you wouldn't eat.
There we go. So bleach tabs and toilets is another no-no. The photo here on the right, you'll see that's actually a decomposed toilet flapper. That's chlorine and the bleach just eating away at that flapper. You pull that thing out of there, it's mush in your hands. It's actually kind of crazy how it breaks down. Almost looks like coral in the coral reef. The way all the breakdown just floats in the toilet. But best way to if you see it, tell them to take it out. As you'll see there, that's what a toilet flapper would look like versus the picture there to the right. Now, chlorine in city water can cause the same type of effect depending on how close they are to the distribution plant and how heavy the chlorine is within that water. You'll see in the photo here, there's rubber seals that are underneath the bolts to connect the toilet tank to the bowl, which can also take a beating from chlorine and bleach tablets. Bleach tablets will also rust out that brass bolt that's in there as well. So hair in bathtubs is always a drain's best friend. Just kidding. We always recommend this drain catcher there if we find customers with thicker hair or constant drain clogs in a shower. It does its best. I can't say it's foolproof, but it will catch a majority of the hair. I know it works for my wife at home. When you do get hair in the drain, it obviously leads for slower drainage. It also becomes a catch point for soap scum and everything that goes down the drain to catch onto, and it can just become a really nasty smell. I've actually found also over time when I used to run service, longer sections of hair that will go down a sewer trap, when it does get stuck within the bend, it will leach the water and cause that sewer trap to actually emit sewer gases because the water will leach out of the drain, of the trap into the drain, surprisingly. Big thing we also take a look at when we're in a customer's home is going to be water temperature. 120 degrees is the set point of any residential water heaters to avoid scalding. You'll see the scald hazard for the temperatures related to it. That can cause burning and how long it takes to cause burning. There can be some fluctuation to the set point of the water heater with the gas valve. So you'll typically see a water heater where it's got a triangle where that's the actual set point. Anything above it's going to be within that 125 and up range. The gas valves aren't perfect. So when you are taking a temperature reading and you see anything over that, it can just be that it needs to be dialed down a little bit. But another thing that we see as well is stacking within water heaters. So when a water heater is not used from its full capacity, when you deplete it of, say, a third of that capacity, it refills with water and then ends up reheating. It's heating that already hot water as well as the newly introduced cold water, which can cause for the sandwich effect, causing for overly hot water as well. To avoid that, we recommend mixing valves on water heaters.
All those numbers are for an adult male. Children, women, and elderly people burn much faster.
Yep, that's what my wife comes out beet red from the shower. She likes them nice and hot, but anytime that's a big thing, especially when we see kids in the house, we recommend having water at least 120 degrees or lower.
You going to talk about filters on washing machines?
Filters?
Filters? No, okay. On septic systems, we strongly suggest putting something that looks like a whole house water filter on the washing machine drain, because there's an immense amount of lint in that. If it gets into the septic system, it's real expensive.
Yeah, definitely recommend putting one of those sheets right over the drain line as it enters into there. Another thing we commonly see around gas water heaters is everything you'll see below, whether it's storage, gas cans, paint cans, kitty litter. All of that should be out of the same mechanical room as a gas water heater, as it is highly flammable. All right, questions? Yes,
I
sir.
want to touch base briefly on the class action lawsuits on X plumbing.
Okay, usually
With some.
Just asking you to touch briefly on the class action lawsuits on multiple PEX manufactured plumbing material.
Are you speaking on the Quest or New Age PEX?
There are multiple manufacturers.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't completely caught wind. I know that there is a class action that's going on with the red color and the blue color PEX piping. So that's why in a majority of the time you're going to find it's white in color with red or blue writing on the piping. But I personally have not understood. I don't know where it's at with the class action. I know it's there. I personally don't have any information on that.
Several suits already, several pending.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, sir.
So I can't speak to the PEX, but the generations before that with polybutylene, it was a $3.5 billion class action lawsuit against Shell Oil, who manufactured the resins designed for polybutylene, and it was vulnerable to the chlorine in the water, which was causing the crimping fittings to fail. And I know you started to touch on that. Much like yourself, I'm not familiar with the PEX and the newer generations and that lawsuit. So, but that's all I have. I don't know if that helps anybody.
Yeah, that's why I don't know about it. That's clearly still in litigation.
Two quick comments I have. One with the flow mowing or the whole house leak detectors as a category. I have talked with some insurance brokers, and some underwriters do offer, a premium reduction under their policy. So it can also save the homeowners money. So that's a selling point I use to encourage them to
Correct.
get one. And secondly, with the water heaters and pans, I don't care if it is in a basement. I don't know how many times I pointed out that the plumber's gonna say you're on a concrete floor and don't need it. But 12 inches away on the other side of this wall, you've got carpet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's anytime I'm in there talking about replacement, that's you'd be surprised how many people still decline it. Yeah.
And we have a question from online. Go ahead.
Water temperature has to be between 135 and 140 to kill bacteria, they say. So if you set it at 120, it's not hot enough to kill everything. And that's what your mixing valves and your are supposed to accommodate for, correct?
That is correct. Yep. I will say not every water heater is going to have a mixing valve. That is an addition to the water heater. Per local code and the manufacturer, we do set them at the 120 degrees.
So, like, most new water control fixtures have mixing valves built into them, don't they?
Tankless water heaters do, yes.
No,
Not
I
a-
mean at the faucets. My shower has a mixing valve at the turn off, on and off valve.
Correct. Yeah, you are mixing it. If it's a single handle faucet, you're mixing it at the point of use. If it's a two handle faucet, you can scald yourself.
The number one thing that I see, especially with renovations, is the anti-scald valve isn't adjusted. So I'll get to the hot water on the sink, it's 135. You get to the shower, it's 120. Well, if you crank that back to 120, you're going to suddenly have cold showers, which is why they cranked it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
But most people are, I don't know if some plumbers aren't even aware there's an anti-scald valve or what.
Yeah,
That's
I
the
can.
number one thing I see.
Yeah, to your point exactly, when I was running service, that'd be a common thing. Just have my bathroom remodeled and I can't get enough hot water out of here, and you remove the handle and you can adjust that for sure.
Can you talk a little bit about the mixing valves that are required for soaking tubs? That you should, if there's a soaking tub in the master bath, there should always be a mixing valve under one of the sinks, because the maximum temperature at a soaking tub is 106, I think.
Yeah, so as she stated, any time you see a soaker tub, you'll want to check underneath the vanity sinks, as you will typically see a mixing valve. I can't say they're always underneath the sink. Sometimes we have to play detective to find them. Some contractors are putting them in the ceilings. And you'll also sometimes, if it's a built-in tub, it can be within the tile as well, where there is a false point within the tile. If you look close enough, you'll see that some of the joints actually silicone. You just cut that silicone, panel comes right off.
So Chris, when you were speaking earlier about putting ice cubes down the disposal, I wondered if you were going to talk about hygiene regarding Whirlpool tubs.
In
Cleaning
terms of-
them and.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we don't even repair Whirlpool tubs, but there's plenty of videos on YouTube that I've seen to clean those Whirlpool tubs. I can't honestly speak on that. We don't, if we see them, we let people know we don't touch them. That's a whole different ballgame.
These bidets that you see put on top of the toilets, are they a danger for cross connection?
Depending on the manufacturers we deal with is Toto specifically, so they actually have a built-in check valve on the inlet supply to avoid any cross connection, but that's a good question, yep. Any of your older bidets, they are gonna have essentially an air gap that's installed above the backside of it when it's a standalone bidet. So definitely want to make sure that bidet would have an air gap there.
So a follow-up question to the one that was online. Why isn't it that most of the new installations, especially in new homes, why are they not putting a tempering valve right at the water heater to make it for the whole home? So you're killing off the bacteria at the tank and keeping it the proper temperatures for the household.
It's a great question. That's what I would say is money. Yeah, that's typically why people don't want to do it, because it costs money as well. We definitely recommend it on every water heater, but not everyone wants it. A lot of people also consider another point for any failure, as it does have built-in check valves to allow for it to mix the water properly. But yeah.
And a follow-up question for you on the sewer scoping. You were talking, like when you were talking about the Orangeburg, you were talking about the possibility of doing a relining. Can you talk a little bit more about what you guys would do to reline when you don't have to fully excavate?
Yeah, great question. So anytime you see a sewer line that doesn't have a belly, it can be lined typically, so long as the pattern of fittings is not too many. But what it is there's a couple different ways to do lining, whether it's essentially inserting a sock from one starting point to another starting point by feeding it all the way through. And then it is pressurized and filled with a current that makes the actual liner solidify and take on the internal shape of that pipe and allow for it to be a brand new pipe in the existing line. There's different types of curing. There's UV curing as well as the resin curing. UV curing is going to take about 8 hours to cure, whereas the resin type can be between 30 minutes and 2 hours. It is a big thing that's being done nowadays when we have those nice landscaping that's done in yards. There's also pipe bursting methods that are available where you can actually send a missile through an existing line and take the exact same pathway so long as there's no bellies to replace it as well.
If a pipe has been relined in a house, is there a way for us as inspectors to identify that that has been done? I mean, do you put stickers or labels or something, and where should we look for that?
There'll typically be a sticker on a clean out, which that's a great question because any sewer line that has been lined should not be snaked. It should only be jetted.
So what do you know about the lining copper supply pipes?
I actually keep passing this, I think it says drain ER or ER pipe truck all the time lately in the air park. And I sparked my interest, so I started searching them online. It's not something that we get involved with because I'm not really behind it, honestly. But from what I was reading about, what they do is they send a sand mixture through the line to break off anything that's within the copper pipe in, and then they hook up gauges and so forth and line that pipe. It's something that's new to our area. From what I was reading, it's mostly done out west and so forth.
All right. I have a question. I inspected a house that had a 1/2-inch pipe that went through a slab up to the sink. It was probably, 50 feet from where the utility room was. So they brought up the 3/8 flex line through that. What are your suggestions, or how do you guys handle when you have a slab with some smaller distributions to like a kitchen sink, obviously for a dishwasher as well? And it was a cathedral ceiling, so you're not going to run any water pipes through an attic. You can't insulate it properly. Any solutions besides jackhammering up that slab?
From me, I do a lot of estimating and sales from Mallick, so I've come up with some decent plans in terms of building bulkheads throughout the house. That's really the best way when people don't want to do any jackhammering. We will never put a 3/8 line through a 1/2-inch pipe, honestly. If it's 3/4, then 1/2-inch going to it is a different story. But again, that'd be for a single fixture. I wouldn't necessarily put 3/8 through that 1/2-inch line myself.
Kevin online has a question for you.
Okay.
Give it a second for him to unmute. If not, I'll ask it for him. Okay, so he has, how do you test a drain to determine if the drain needs a Studer drain? I think he's meaning the Studer vent.
Yeah, good question. So best way to test if a drain's working properly is going to be able to stop that drain up, whether it's putting a towel in it or if you have a drain stopper, or if it's a pop-up, just actuate it to where it's closed off, fill that sink up to the highest capacity and then let it drain. That's going to tell you how well that drain's draining. But that, especially if you can't see anything under the sink, if you see that S-trap going into the wall, depending on the layout of the bathroom, there's the way that vent piping is interconnected. It can also has to be within a specific distance per code. So when it's away from that distance, it can still cause some of the same effects as not having a vent.
If it's not draining properly and you hear a gurgle noise, could you elaborate on that, please?
Yeah, the gurgling noise can be caused of no ventilation or poor ventilation. So we do often find vent lines. In the wintertime, it can happen from snow, but from leaves as well as critters. We've found all sorts of dead animals within venting lines for sewer drains.
Child's toys.
Yeah, that's another thing. Yep, you definitely find some toys in sewer lines. I found bathing suits. It's how you say it all.
So they made significant changes to the rules about requirements for venting, where they're allowing a lot more of the air admittance valves now.
Yeah, you can vent whole houses on an air admittance valve technically.
So they're still requiring one vent through the roof though, right?
Yes,
And that-
yeah, but we mostly use it for these types of situations for the sinks. You can vent the whole bathroom on it. We've done it before. Big thing is you want to make sure there's always access for it. They do make specific access grates. It looks like a fresh air vent or a return vent for HVAC system. When you look through it, you can actually see the Studer vent within it.
Can you elaborate a little bit on when you see them in a home and what you should be telling your clients about when you know that they went bad?
Yeah, I mean, you'll definitely notice that there's improper ventilation. So when you're running that fixture and it's not draining properly. Another thing I used to see all the time is you'll smell the sewer gases because that flap's either not sealing all the way because it's not flat to the actual Studer vent itself. They say they last 10 to 30 years, but it's definitely always something to take a look at if you do see them. It's something that can just be screwed right off the top and screwed right back on.
So could you estimate the failure rate of a 60-year-old ceramic tile shower pan? What do you think the odds that thing's not leaking?
Yeah, that's a very good point. It's probably got a lead base, but it's probably leaking. Yeah.
It's almost, almost certainly leaking.
Yeah, I mean, especially if it's not going to be on a ground level, but yeah.
Chris, I have a question for you. Can you talk a little bit about service lives of some of the older systems we're seeing, primarily copper water pipes, CPVC, could be gold bond, and some of the, I guess you hit on cast iron earlier or so, but on some of these, things to look at when people are looking at older houses, maybe 50, 60 years or older.
Yeah, so big thing with copper is there's actually two grades to copper. There's your type M and then there's type L. Type L is going to be your thicker grade copper. So just like the PVC pipe, it's actually imprinted on the pipe. Majority of the L type copper is going to have a blue stamp, whereas the M will have a red stamp. So depending on the age of the home, that'd be a way to be able to communicate on some of the longevity that might be left if they've got the thin wall type copper. Like I said earlier, when it comes to how close you are to the distribution plant with the water quality that can come from being so close, we tend to see that piping degrade a lot quicker. But I've also been in homes that are 70 years old and they're rocking and rolling, whether it comes with drain or water. But big thing is just being able to look at any type of exposed piping to see checking the joints out. Even if there's not a pinhole leak, seeing if there's any blue staining within just middle sections of the piping, it's going to be a potential to fail at one point.
Switch gears. You said you're also master gas fitter. Dylan gave us a little bit about bonding on CSST. Can you give us your approach on that?
Yeah. So yellow CSST is actually illegal to use in Maryland. It's written into law. So you definitely want to make sure if you do see it that there is a bond. So a bond is going to be, it's a clamp that's going to go on any part of the gas piping in the home, whether it's at the gas meter. It can be on the black steel. It doesn't have to be actually on the CSST pipe. But a bond is going to be ran from the piping back to the electrical panel. I'm sorry?
Since when it's illegal in Maryland?
About last eight months or so, I want to say, might even be over a year now. Yeah, the yellow CSST, they might have some manufacturers manufacturing a newer type, but there is track pipe counterstrike is the majority, that is the only pipe we work with. It's a black jacket now. So with it being outlawed, it doesn't necessarily mean when we see it, we have to tell someone we need to take this out. It's more so we always just confirm that there's a bond on it. Unfortunately, the owner of Mallick actually experienced the issue with that piping. His was bonded, but it did get struck by lightning and burned down part of his barn. Yeah.
So a follow-up question on that too. There's, we had seen in a newer construction where they had the bonding on a manifold. So you had CSST going from the meter to the manifold, then CSST going out from the manifold. I know that there's been times where it's been read that it has to be before the CSST, other times where people are saying it could be anywhere in the system. Do you have any comment on that?
Anywhere on the system from what we work with, yeah. Yeah, majority of the time you see it on the manifold like you stated. Yeah, I personally am not a fan of any CSST being outside in general. It's black steel from the meter to inside, and CSST from that point out. In all honesty, we try to do everything to not work with CSST.
And online had a follow-up of it actually has to go from the gas line back to the panel. It cannot go from the gas line to a copper water line.
Correct. No, yeah, it needs to go back to, that's the difference between a bond and a ground, yeah. Because if you put it back on the water line, that's more so grounding the line, especially if it's on copper, because that's grounded by the earth. Whereas the bond needs to go back to the neutral on the electrical panel.
So as long as we're on this topic, I think it's wise of us to be reminded that there are some state regulations in both Virginia and Maryland that require that home inspectors who identify the presence of the yellow CSST have very specific language that they are required to include in the report, which includes the statement that they are themselves not qualified to determine whether or not it's properly bonded.
Okay.
So anybody who's unfamiliar with that need to go look that up because it's required in both Virginia and Maryland for home inspectors.
Yes, sir.
If anybody else has a question on this, I can wait because I'm going to shift you back to plumbing.
Oh,
Yeah.
I just wanted to reiterate on the CSST. State of Maryland says it could be anywhere in the system. But I took a course from Washington Gas and they said they preferred a meter before any CSST. But that's a Washington Gas suggestion.
I'm sorry, I might not have followed.
Washington Gas,
Uh,
I took a CSST course from Washington Gas.
Okay.
They suggested that it be at the meter before any electricity could get to the CSST.
got it. Okay.
All
Yeah.
right. But the state of Maryland says anywhere in the system, like exactly what you were saying.
Yep.
So the state of Maryland says anywhere in the system, but Washington Gas prefers it before any CSST.
Understood. Yeah.
So you must have read their instructions.
One of the surprises I got in a recent new home inspection was Big Blue.
Yeah.
Because I know that in the past there was the blue polybutylene that was used for the water service pipe. And I was really shocked to find a Big Blue water service pipe in a new build last year. And so can you talk a bit about the new formulation of this Big Blue and why on earth did they make it blue?
I can't necessarily speak on the chemical makeup of it, but I can tell you that it is found on new water services today. Whereas that was also, as I'm sure you're aware of, the piping that was part of a class action lawsuit as well for underground water services. But yes, there is blue water services that are being put in nowadays.
Well, they're PEX, aren't they?
I believe it's a poly-type pipe. Yeah, majority of any type of water, main water services, that's going to be a black type pipe. It's polyethylene, typically rated for 200 PSI. That's what we'll work with. Copper water mains are typically a thing of the past nowadays.
So you were talking about the different types of copper when you mentioned there was M and also L. I know L's a little thicker and it's used for hard and soft temper, but you didn't mention type K, which has the green print on there. Are they no longer manufacturing that?
That's mostly used underground.
Correct.
Yeah, they do manufacture it, but just in terms of inside of a home, you'll find the M and the L, but yes, K type copper is mostly used in the ground. They still manufacture it.
And I know they use that for gas as well. Is that still the case?
Yep, you can use soft L copper as well for gas.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Yes.
Question? Over here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were pointing.
So you mentioned early on about shark bite and you weren't a fan of it. We have seen even in some new construction where they're putting shark bite even below ground, like fixing a main water line coming in. Can you talk more about your experience with shark bite and anything you can pass on to us in that reference to it?
Yeah, so we've just seen enough failures with shark bites. Just it's really caused by poor installation. We used to many years ago, that was kind of the only way to really transition between two different materials. So a lot of people were using that rather than using male and female joints. So if you're not deburring the pipe and sanding it, and there's a specific depth that you need to measure before you actually put that shark bite fitting on, then it can prematurely fail. I think they're rated for like 30 or 50 years, some of the fittings. Like he stated, they have some underground fittings, but they're also not very friendly with water pressure when they're not installed all the way. But anytime we see them, especially if we're working in the same area as it, if we're going to be touching any piping nearby and it's going to cause for that piping to shift that shark bites on, we're going to cut it out because we're not going to be responsible for anything of that. But shark bites, they are made to, they can be removed and reinstalled. While it's in the manufacturer reading, it's not recommended to be reinstalled, but it is regularly done. There's also, when used on PEX piping, the big thing is if you're using a shark bite, there's a stiffener within the shark bite that is supposed to stay in the shark bite when you put it within the PEX pipe, because it's going to stiffen the inside of that PEX as the shark bite clamps onto the outside of it, rather than causing it to warp when you put the shark bite on and over time causing a leak. And then that same stiffener, can't really see it is the tough part. So that's also part of why when we see them, we're going to cut them out.
So what's your take on ProPress?
ProPress, we do use ProPress. Big thing is when ProPress is used, us as a company, we don't press onto M copper. We're going to typically solder on a coupling with a section of L to press onto that. A lot of M copper, when you cut into it, it sometimes turns into an egg shape, or you can, once you're done cutting it, you can literally squeeze it and it will squeeze together like a sandwich. But ProPress, it is the wave of the future. We switched over to it probably about 2-3 years ago completely. All of our trucks are stocked with a press gun. You can press up. I know our commercial division, they're pressing 2- and 3-inch pipe in. ProPress is made to allow for the plumber to get things done a lot quicker. But I will say, when you're getting into those larger size fittings, it is very costly. They do have Mega Press for gas as well. But big thing is there is a surefire installation process to all of it. Whereas you have to deburr the pipe as well, sand it down, measure it, and mark it, and then press it and confirm that it's obviously not leaking.
So what's that machine cost?
Want to say depends if you're getting an M12 or an M18, but we work with Milwaukee brand. I believe the M12 is right around like $1,500 nowadays, depending where you get it from. Might be more so $2,000, but the larger unit with jaws and everything about $3,000.
Is it hard to keep on the truck?
No, they're nice and small. Oh, we don't even want to talk. We've unfortunately had some box trucks with the locks and the doors straight up cut off and ransacked.
So a couple part question here. One, what is your service area? And two, what do you guys, like, if you have new build and things like this, what do you guys recommend to be used nowadays for supply lines?
Supply lines, I mean, when we're doing a repipe, we're always going to recommend PEX. It's going to be the easiest thing to install for us, and it's going to give best longevity out of things. Depending on cost, we'll also do CPVC. We still use CPVC. Copper would obviously be the best thing to use, but honestly is a thing of the past when it comes to a new build. We don't necessarily get into new builds, but we do some light facelifts, as we call it, for some bathrooms and so forth. But our service area is going to be Maryland. We've got a little map that would show it's not completely Maryland, but it'll go up as far as, I was about to say. Yeah, so Montgomery, Frederick, Carroll, and Howard County. We do service Northwest DC. Commercial is going to service all of Maryland, DC, and parts of Virginia. So we do also, we're part of essentially the Toto brand. With one of them, a couple of our guys have also been sent to California, gotten trained on the Toto bidets and the Neo-Rests. Neo-Rests are going to be those high-end toilets that you see, some going up to $20,000. But yeah, they're built-in bidets, heated seats. They got a dryer to dry you off. Oh, tell me about it. We're putting in 3 in a house next week. But yeah, they've got some. Toto's a really unique brand. They're definitely the tried and true if anyone talks about a bidet. But we are certified from the factory. That's correct. Big thing is if you do see, if there's ever a Toto bidet out there, technically you're not supposed to work on it unless you're certified.
And since you don't like the shark bite, what is your best transition from the copper to PEX?
It's going to be those male and female type fittings. So screw fittings. Yeah.
Quick question. Yeah. Water treatment systems. Yeah, typically on well systems. Yeah, I have a house that's where I live. It's from the 60s, so it had copper, and then you start to, if you don't stay up on your treatment system, you tend to get the pin leaks. And I wonder if you find that you see a lot of homes that have been converted over to CPVC, and if they don't have water treatment systems, whether I think it can be misleading to clients that they think they're solving a problem where they're taking the metal out of the system in theory, but I think what they don't recognize is that now they've removed a lot of the metal from the system. So whatever metal is still in the system, like your water heater and all your valves and plumbing fixtures, are really going to get attacked faster. Do you find that that's the case?
Just in the situation you spoke of specifically, the house gets replumbed in CPVC, they forget about all the other fixtures in the house. Still need to protect all of that because depending on how low your pH is, it can eat out a faucet very fast, especially a water heater, as that's a tank that's holding water. Your improperly balanced pH is really going to be your biggest factor that's going to be eating away at any metals. So you want to have your pH be between that 7 and 8. Anything below 7 is going to cause for that acidic reaction. Anything below about 6 is when it's highly acidic and it's really going to corrode fixtures. We've seen them eat out water heaters within 6 months.
Thank you.